All right, guys. So I got the tailstock painted right here, and there's the base of the tailstock. I had all the other bits hanging up on this wire, this rack right here on these wires. So I'm going to bring this all over to the bench, and we're going to start assembling this. So this should wrap up really the bulk of this lathe project, and then we'll make the part that I'm missing, which is the ring that captures the wiper for the quill. So let me get this over to my workbench and we'll get putting this together. All right, folks, so here are all the bits that go to the tailstock. So see right here, I have all the parts all cleaned up, ready to be reassembled. So I'll just basically go in the reverse order of what I did taking it apart. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get the this body here assembled with the cam and the bushing, and then we'll just go step by step till I get this all put back together. So let me get you on a little stand and let's get this thing put together. All right, guys, I moved this over to my other workbench here where I've got a little bit more room to work. So let's get started with, we'll put in the little oilers. These guys right here, I knocked those guys out so that I could clean all this up, and then I just kind of brush those up on the wire wheel. So let's get these installed. I might actually, I am going to run that. I'm going to run a reamer through there, clean that up because I got some paint in there. Even though I plugged them, I do have some paint. So let me go fetch a reamer. All right, so I have a 5/16 reamer. So I'll just run that in here. And there's another oiler down here. Wasn't too bad. Okay, let's see if we can't knock these guys in. Okay. All right, that guy's in. And then this one right here. Let's see that guy right down here. Okay, we got those in. So now let's flip this over, and we have to get the bushing in there, and let's make sure you can see everything. So this bushing's got to go in here with this cam and this connecting rod, I guess. Got a little bit of brake cleaner here to get the adhesive off from the glue, or the tape. I used this Harbor Freight masking tape, which is probably not the best idea. It leaves a lot of residue behind. Alright, so let's get that cleaned out in there. So what I'll do is, you see that's where the set screw that holds this guy in is supposed to be. So we'll get the set screw, we'll get some oil on here. I'm going to use some whey oil, which is Vector number 2, and then we'll get this assembled. All right, so let's see here. I remember that I had to deburr that so that I could get this off. So this is where the handle goes, and we'll get some oil on here. I think I mentioned before it was really dry, so we'll get this all nice and oiled up. Okay. what I'd like to do actually is find that spot on this bushing where that set screw is supposed to go. So I wasn't really paying attention to that, so I'm going to just knock that around so I can see where that's at. Okay, so I tapped the bushing in, have my little connecting rod on here, the eccentric, I got the set screw. So the mark that was in that bronze bushing, it's not symmetrical, so I had it in the wrong way. I had to spin it around so that the bronze bushing is just slightly recessed when that mark on that bushing shows up where this little grub screw goes. So let's get that screw in there. So as you know, before when I took it apart, that screw was not tight. So now we have that. So let's just check the operation of this guy. And it works pretty good. There's a little bit of a, I guess, stiffness to it, but it seems okay. All right. Okay, we've gone to the next step. Next step is to get the base of the tailstock mated to this. So there's a couple screws, bolts that go in here. That's like jack screws to move the tailstock in and out to help you center it up. So let me go get those bolts, which are these bolts right here. Let me get a little bit of whey oil on these surfaces. Again, I wanted to talk a little bit about the oiling. So I don't know if you can see it right here, right there. This hole right there, that's where the oil cap is on the other side. So you see this cavity here, that mates up to that cavity right here. And you see there's an oil passage here and here. So that's how oil gets down to the ways. And then this looks like maybe a little overflow channel. So when you oil that thing, this cavity here is going to fill with oil and rest down on top of the ways. And if you, I guess, overfill it, it's going to come out here. That's my guess. Looks like they took a lot of care to make sure this machine had good oiling. We'll see. Put it back together. We'll measure the wear against the spindle height, see where we're at. My other lathe actually has some shims. I want to say there are 2,000 or 3,000 shims in between these two parts in order to lift the tailstock up to get it lined up with the center line of the headstock. So I'm sure that that's a pretty common situation with these things. Not light. Okay, let's see here. Get you a little farther away so you can see everything. I'll leave these a little bit loose for now because we'll have to tweak it in when we do the alignment. I have one of those edge tailstock alignment kind of fixtures tools. It's basically just a straight rod that you measure the offset. So as I tighten these things up, I can see the upper and lower assemblies here moving back and forth. So we're not going to worry about that adjustment right now. We'll get back to it later. Okay. So the next next thing that we'll do is we'll assemble the clamping device mechanism. I mean, you know, looking at these, I can still see the scraping marks on these ways. They don't look terrible, but we'll find out. I didn't measure this before I took the lathe apart. Talked before, there's an oil passage there, lines up with this groove, and then obviously an oil passage there. All right, let's get the rest of those parts and we'll get this next piece assembled. All right, get this part right here. Get a little bit of oil on that. We'll get a little bit of oil here and here. I didn't show it, but off camera, I disassembled this guy. There's set screws here and here. I disassembled it and put it in the ultrasonic. So this guy threads in right here. And what you wind up doing is where are we at here? You adjust the depth of, you know, how far you screw this thing in. So as you operate that lever and you pull up on this, you can adjust the position of the clamping lever. So I'll just set it kind of here for now. I know I'll have to come back and deal with this later. That's okay. So got these two roll pins that these springs go on, like that. Then this guy right here, we'll get some oil in here as well for these guys to slide on. Just kind of get it a little bit coated with oil. So this guy slides on here, like that. And then this guy goes on there, a nut underneath it, and then a nut on top of it. What I should have done is put a little mark on there so I knew where this was, but I didn't do that. All right. I think you might be able to get to this nut setup from the end of the ways, and we might be able to get a wrench in there and adjust this without having to take the tailstock off. But we'll see. All right. I'm going to leave these loose for now. I think we're going to have to come back and adjust those. All right, let's flip this guy up. And it's getting really heavy. So I think next we'll get that quill in there. So I didn't do anything fancy to this guy. I just polished it up a bit. We'll have to put this thing on a scale and see what it weighs. It's really heavy. So I'm just looking here. There's an orientation. Obviously, there's a index mark right there, so I know that that's going to go up on top like that. So what we need to do is get this lead screw in here. So see there's a few pieces here, flat bearing. So we'll get some oil on here and we'll get some oil here. Okay. You know what? I'm forgetting something. Let's see what's going on here. I'm forgetting there is, okay. There's a couple springs and ball bearings. There we go, right here. So I guess I didn't forget those yet. So we'll get this back. There's a, right here you see there's, can you see that? 2 holes. There's 2 springs and a ball bearing going there just to put a little bit of pressure so that this thing just doesn't freewheel. All right, so there's just one spot where it allows you to spin that in between the 2 keys. All right, let's get these screws in. These guys, 2 little 188 ball bearings. I just ordered new ones from, I think, Amazon. Okay, well, I'm going to take the balls off for now until I get it a little bit closer. Okay, I can still turn that. So now we put the handle on. What I did is I drove the hand wheel out for the, just so I could get this thing cleaned up and painted. I'll tap it back on. Okay. All right, I'll go get a couple 1/8" drill bits, get that tightened up. All right, we'll flip that thing back up and get the clamp put on. We'll just check this real quick, make sure it works. Okay. Seemed a little bit stiff, not sure why. This thing spins freely. No, it's freeing up now. Probably paint on there or grease, whatever. Seems pretty good. I know it probably looks like I'm really having to crank on this thing, but that's not really the case. It's pretty easy. Very smooth. Okay. All right, well, next thing will be to get the quill clamp put together. All right, guys, so a little bozo mistake, as Tom Lipton would say. I did not realize that my camera memory was full, and we missed a couple things. So, actually, there's two bozo mistakes that I want to point out. So one, obviously, is my camera was full. So we didn't get a chance to see reinstalling the tailstock lever, and we didn't get the quill lock installed. No biggie, just a roll pin and a set screw, and just a, you know, sliding that little taper in there and getting that knob up on there. So the other bozo mistake is if you look under here, you'll see the clamp mechanism. And if you remember earlier, I had threaded that in a certain distance, which I did not measure when I took it apart. When I installed it, I left it hanging down too far, and when I slid the tailstock on, that thing dragged on the web of the bed. So we're gonna have to mix up a little batch of catalyzed urethane and patch that up, and it'll blend in, you'll never see it. So yeah, I got the tool post holder on there, I got a chuck on there. So what I'll be doing in the next video is making that part that I lost, and we're gonna make it on this lathe. So you'll get to see that. And then once I wrap that up, we're gonna get on the 30-inch real quick. Not gonna do anything to it other than put the tubes in it, put some power on it, fire it up, and we'll see how it runs. And I really appreciate you guys watching this. Hope you got something out of it. I know I did. It's been an interesting project. See you soon.